I'd like to call this public hearing to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry? Mr. Rogan?
Here.
Mr. Evans?
Here.
Mr. Gahn?
Here.
Mr. Wexler?
Here.
The purpose of said public hearing is to hear testimony and discuss the following. File of the Council Number 81, 2017, an ordinance approving the transfer of a restaurant liquor license currently owned by Another Time Restaurant, LLC, trading as AV Restaurant, Music Borough, license number R-10827, to Another Time Restaurant, LLC, trading as AV Restaurant, for use at 320 Penn Avenue, Scranton, Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania, as required by the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board.
Is there anyone here to give testimony this evening? Let the record show there's no one. Public hearing is adjourned. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent reflection for our servicemen and women throughout the world, and also for those who have passed away in our community. We are especially thinking of the McGough family this week for their loss of Gert Gillette, sister of former council member Bob McGough, and also Jim Rose from DCED on the loss of his father, Mr. Alan Rose. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Rogan?
Here.
Mr. Evans?
Here.
Mr. Gahn?
Here.
Mr. Wexler?
Here. There will be a motion to move items 5C and 5D to 6th and 7th order for final vote, based on the attached emergency certificates. There will be a second opportunity to speak in 7th order prior to the final passage of these two pieces of legislation. Before we get on with the formal meeting, this past Monday, Councilman Gahan and myself, we attended the Martin Luther King ceremonies that were conducted in Scranton. Part of that was the revealing of a banner that was designed by students from the Career Technology Center. Kimberly Meckwood, who was responsible for the MLK portrait, and Ruby Palikar, who came up with the design for the hands. Their teachers are Rebecca Hayden and Patrick McLean. This evening, Karen Foster, who is president of the West Scranton High Park Neighborhood Watch and also a member of the Greater Scranton MLK Commission, are here tonight just so we can show the banner and give it some publicity, because it is a true tribute to Dr. King and all his good work. So, ladies, if you would just hold that banner up so the public can see it. And I'd just like to give the designers and the committee a round of applause for their great work. Thank you. And that will be displayed throughout different ceremonies, and next year probably will be represented on the committee's T-shirts, I believe. Thanks again. Dispense with reading of the minutes.
Third order, 3A minutes of the regular meeting of the members of Scranton Housing Authority held December 5, 2016.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3B minutes of the Scranton Firefighters Pension Commission meeting held December 14, 2016.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3C minutes of the non-uniform Municipal Pension Board meeting held December 14, 2016.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3D minutes of the Scranton Police Pension Commission meeting held December 14, 2016.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3E, minutes of the Composite Pension Board meeting held December 14, 2016.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed.
3F, agenda for the non-uniform municipal pension board meeting held January 18, 2017.
Are there any comments? If not, received and filed. Do any council members have announcements at this time?
Yes, I have one. I just wanted to announce again about the event Splash In with Compassion. The Friends of Shannon McDonough is a local 501c organization that supports young individuals battling cancer in northeastern Pennsylvania. And they'll be holding their 4th annual Polar Plunge on Saturday, January 28th from 9 a.m. until 3 p.m. at Montage Mountain in Scranton, PA. And all proceeds will benefit young people in our area who are battling cancer. Thank you.
Fourth order, citizens' participation.
Joan Hodawanitz.
Joan Hodawanitz, Scranton resident and taxpayer. If memory serves, we passed the 2017 budget on December 8th of last year, correct? That's 6 weeks ago tonight. Yet I noticed as of 5:15 tonight, it's not been posted to the city's website. Now, I don't know why that is, whether someone made the decision not to post it or there's an issue in the IT department. But I do remember this from the budget. There were 3 significant raises in the IT department. One IT manager got a $5,000 raise, another one got a $6,611 raise, and a network systems analyst got a $3,000 raise. I hope I don't have to wait another week to see that budget posted. And I hope when they post it, it has all the proper changes. And that should be a priority because that's a key document for the city and the citizens should have access to it. And I'll be looking forward to...
Ms. Hodawanitz, I didn't want to interrupt you, but there were some corrections to it, so we just want to make sure that it is correct when it is posted.
I don't believe that was the reason why it wasn't posted.
That's your belief,
So-
but that's why it's not posted.
Because I don't think that the city knew on January 5th that it had made some errors in its tax legislation.
Well, again, that's what you think.
But that's my opinion. And I'm looking forward to seeing the City Council's webpage by the end of this month or early next month so I can see the background information. With regard to item 5B on the realty transfer tax, when I first read that, I said, this must be deja vu. We did this on January 5th, correct? We had an emergency certificate and we amended it to go from 2.9% to 2.4%. And then I went in and looked at the background paper. And I found a memo from Attorney Shrive dated January 10th and received in the office of the City Council/City Clerk on January 10th. And it explains why this legislation has to be redone. And it says, once the rate of taxation was changed, the ordinance could no longer be adopted at one meeting, as a change in the rate of taxation requires 3 readings at separate meetings and special advertising under Act 511. Upon passage of this new ordinance, File of Council 74, 2017 as amendment will be repealed as it was erroneously adopted. My only question is, why wasn't this on last week's agenda? Since this memo is dated January 10th and was received on January 10th. Last week was January 12th. This could have been on last week's agenda.
It wasn't ready, I don't think.
Yeah, it wasn't ready by Wednesday afternoon.
Well, this was received on Tuesday.
Well, the letter was, but I don't think the
Yeah,
legislation
the
was received.
legislation didn't come down in time for us to get it onto the agenda.
Believe
Well,
me, yeah, we would
it
have
says attached is an ordinance. So he sent the legislation down, and
Yeah,
it's
but
dated January 10th
We have to
and
have an
received.
opportunity to review it, so not everything that comes down on Tuesday makes it to the agenda on Wednesday.
Okay, all right. I would like to know during fifth order the status of pension reforms as we eagerly await the deposit of the SSA proceeds into the pension plans. Also, has the city ever received the money yet, or is this something that's going to happen at the end of the year? Have we received any money from the sewer sale?
It's in accounts, yes.
It is where?
It's in separate accounts.
Do we have a total?
We have some totals.
Have we have a grand total? Can we get the grand total for next week of what the city actually received so far?
Yeah, Mr. Evans has been working with that.
I'd like
Okay.
to see a breakdown of that also.
Say again?
Yeah, we want to see the breakdown, but we just want to make sure that we have the correct numbers.
Okay. What's the status of on the RFP for the third-party administration of the pension funds? I haven't seen anything, and that was announced by the mayor himself on March 18th, 2016, 10 months ago.
Yeah, it is my understanding that it is getting closer to being issued.
Before or after the general election in 292 days? Okay, that answers that question.
Well, it's something that the administration is working on, so I can't tell you the answer.
It
So
must be a beauty. It must be a beauty if they've been working on it for 10 months. And just very quickly, I remind everybody that tomorrow at 4 p.m. here in the governor's room next door will be the Scranton Sewer Authority meeting. And I would recommend anybody from the general public that can come and let's start asking the Sewer Authority all those hard questions which they have yet to answer about the reduced proceeds that we're receiving. Thank you.
Gerard Hetman?
Good evening, Council. Gerard Hetman from the Lackawanna County Commissioner's Office. To begin this evening, we would like to thank everyone who attended our inaugural public information session on the Lackawanna County Land Bank that was held on Tuesday, January 10th at the Goodwill Apartments at North Scranton Junior High School. We invite anyone who wishes to learn more about the Land Bank to visit the Land Bank homepage on the Lackawanna County website. Just visit www.lackawannacounty.org and click on the Economic Development homepage button on the right side of the screen. We have a wealth of information about the Land Bank there, all of the legislation that establishes the Land Bank, and also an information sheet on each property that's currently listed in the Land Bank database, all of which are currently located in the city of Scranton. We also have a full video of that Land Bank information session meeting available on the county website. It's actually on the left side of the homepage when you scroll down on www.lackawannacounty.org. And of course, this is the beginning of the Land Bank process. We're seeing now the program really starting to take off, and we look forward to working with City Council and the City Administration and all residents to make it a success for Scranton and eventually all communities that wish to participate in Lackawanna County. And I know that there were several council members, city staff, and residents that attended, so we thank everyone, and particularly those who attended our meeting, for working with us to make the Land Bank a success for everyone involved. And just two brief announcements. These are the first announcements from the respective departments here that administer these programs. First of many programs that you'll hear about throughout the year. Our Lackawanna County Indoor Golf Clinic takes place February 20th to March 17th at South Scranton Intermediate School in the gymnasium. There are sessions for youth golfers, ages 8 through 16, and also adult golfers. These are beginner's lessons, so anyone can come in with no experience or very little golf experience and learn from scratch the basics of the game. The cost for registration is $40 per golfer, and the registration deadline is February 17th. To register or for more information, contact our Parks and Recreation office at 570-963-6764. And lastly, the Penn State Extension 4-H program has their annual sewing club open now for youth registration. It's open to children ages 8 through 19. It provides mentorship, team building, and peer-to-peer learning, and also community service structured around sewing projects for kids that enjoy sewing projects recreationally. To register, call 570-563-1369. And I believe they do this program on an annual rolling basis, but they look for applicants at the start of the year. So please, anyone who has a child or teenager or young adult interested, feel free to give the number a call. Other programs will be announced throughout the year as they come up. We anticipate offering most, if not all, of the same programs and activities that you heard us announce over the last several years, so we'll keep you posted as those develop. And that's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Lenny Cerebro?
Lenny Srebro, Scranton resident. Good evening, council. When I was here 2 weeks ago, I was told about the new pumps that were installed, and I did some research. Yeah, there has been new pumps installed, but I'm not sure what they're gonna do, if anything, in my area. All I know is that the rain that we got on January 17th and 18th, the last 2 days, not today, where it was constantly raining the majority of the day. And on top of that, the snow melt coming down into the area. You know, that 36-inch drainage pipe, it's no exaggeration, that was filled for the majority of 2 days, over 3/4 of the way, you know, and it's like a pond that the water lays in there. So I'm not sure what those pumps are going to do. Once again, I'm asking the question about why can't we flush that drain? I know that I was told that we don't have or DPW doesn't have the equipment. I'm wondering, now that the sewer authority is sold, why can't we borrow that equipment?
Yeah, I mean, I for sure feel your pain. I know we've been talking for a while now.
Right.
And I got, you know, some answers about the pump house, and now with this 36-inch drain pipe, things are moving forward. We actually, through correspondence all week, probably 3 or 4 times going back and forth, we were able to line up a meeting at some point this week with the city engineer, the American Water Company, and DPW, and I know myself will be there, and possibly others from the city council will be on site at the same time, and we're going to see why can't we get a drain pipe in the city of Scranton fixed for our residents, because I don't understand it. But
right.
But you know, I get a little emotional, a little flustered too, because it's a drain pipe, it's not operating right, let's fix it. But you know, there's other things, so I try not to fly off the handle, and I'm keeping my composure, but I do understand, I feel your pain. But believe me when I tell you, we have the right people going to be on site this week, and I know myself, I will personally be there, and we're going to get some solid answers, and we're going to get that fixed. It's just going to happen.
Okay. See, after seeing that pipe fill up with the 2-day rain we had, I'm telling you, I live in constant fear that if we have, and it's been a moderate rain, that's what I've said all along, that it doesn't have to be like a flooding rain.
I was thinking about that for the 2-day rain that we had. I was thinking about that, you know, how is it going to handle if it was something, you know, more significant?
That's right. You know, everybody gets water in their basement, or mostly everybody, but boy, during the late summer when we had those heavy rains, I'm telling you, it was gushing through the walls in my basement. I never seen it like that before. You know, I wasn't worried about a little water. I got a pump, you know, to get it out of there, but man, I'm telling you, just coming through the walls. Now, I'm not sure how the drainage, the diagrams, the pipes, how they're connected. I know one of the neighbors turned in some diagrams when we had the caucus on the flooding problem there. But evidently, it makes its way to come down. There is I'm not sure the size, maybe 18-inch, whatever it is, of one pipe coming into that pond, and the water is coming through there, and then it goes into that 36-inch drainage pipe. How it comes down the roads and is connected, see, that's the diagrams that one of the neighbors gave. To me, I don't know. I understand one of the neighbors told me that the city is supposed to be hiring an engineer or a consultant. I know he found out he's going to be making $130,000 a year to come in and kind of look this problem over, you know, to to be a consultant or whatever?
He's not coming to look at that specific problem. He's doing there's going to be a stormwater study for the entire city.
Okay, all
Not
right.
specific to that problem.
All right. Anyway, that's what I was told about it. See, I would have taken pictures of that drainage pipe like yesterday when it was filled up. But I don't know what good the pictures are going to do, you know?
Mr. Cerebro, I'll be at that meeting on Tuesday also. And I can just tell you from experience, when there was an issue over in Pine Brook, Councilman Wexler and myself set up a similar meeting, and all of the neighbors came out, and it was almost like an education. And the people from the sewer authority and one of the engineers explained everything, and that's really what should happen and what hopefully will happen on Tuesday. So hopefully, all of the neighbors come out to this meeting at 9 o'clock on Tuesday so we can take care of this issue once and for all.
Is the public invited to that meeting?
Everybody in the neighborhood, I would assume.
Okay, it's 9
Right.
o'clock Tuesday, and where at?
I think it's Maryfield and Brick Street.
Oh, right in my neighborhood there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thanks a lot for your help.
You're welcome.
Faye Franis?
Faye Ferrandis. I may have to read some of this because there's a couple questions. I can't remember all of them. Does the current garbage ordinance require the administration and the business administrator to set up a special interest-bearing account for all the trash fees?
Yes, it does.
When was this set up?
I believe, I'm actually not sure of the year.
So this goes back years?
It could have been whenever it was raised, I believe.
2014?
I believe so, I'm not positive.
So there was a special account set up then?
I don't believe there was a special account.
But that's what I just asked.
Yes.
Yes, what?
I don't believe there is a special account. That was actually a question I was going to ask tonight. Why
Oh,
aren't we putting the funds into?
Wait, I said, does the current ordinance, there's a current...
Call for that? Yes.
Yes, but, so do you put the current, have you been putting all the garbage fee money into that special bearing account?
As far as I know, no.
How could you explain that? Why would you not? Shall I read the ordinance?
Sure.
All fees shall be deposited in a special city interest-bearing account to be established by the business administration. This account will be used to reimburse the general city operating fund for costs incurred directly for disposal of refuse. Also, the ordinance is specific. The refuse fees cannot be used by the city for anything other than the costs associated with trash removal. The city has violated this ordinance in collecting fees from residents well in excess of the costs incurred directly for the disposal of refuse. So if you know there's an account, why would the money for the garbage fees not going into the special account that can't be used for anything else but that, for the expenses of the DPW trash collection? How do you justify that? Nobody knows?
You can't justify it.
But you know there's an account, and yet you...
No, we didn't know there was, I didn't know there was an account until you just mentioned it.
Pardon me?
I wasn't aware there was a special
Bill
account.
said he knew. And even if you didn't know, you should know.
I wasn't here in 2014.
You don't have to be here in 20... You still should know if there's an account for the garbage fees. You're the finance chair.
Well,
When you should know where all this money is going.
When did you find out, Faye? You just told us tonight.
What's that?
When did you find out?
Am I the finance chair, Wayne?
That's not the point. The point is you're bringing information to us. When did you find out the information?
I'm not a council
Because I would love to
person.
know, if you had that information, I would love... 'cause I would-
Don't turn it around,
I would have
Wayne.
I would have got an answer for you immediately. And I'll get an answer for you next week why we don't have an account. When it's brought to my attention, I'll get an answer.
Well, let's put it this way. You're very inept. You should know these things. You know, I've been talking about this garbage fee for 2 years. It's not my job to know all the laws. It's your job to know the laws that you set up at that council. Even if you didn't set them up, you should know what the laws are pertaining to special accounts for garbage fees, considering I've been asking about this for 2 years, 2.5 years, and still getting no answers. And now to top it off, there's a special account only for the garbage fee money to be used for that, and you've been putting it in the general fund, right? And taking that money for other stuff other than garbage collection, which is unbelievable. Illegal, because you're going against the ordinance, which is illegal. So what is the outcome? When the council, city council, and the city administration, and the business administrator does something illegal, what is the repercussions of that? Nothing, because you just can, because you do whatever you want to do. Break the law. It's okay if you do it, but if somebody else does it, they're held accountable. Not you, though, and your excuse is, well, we didn't know. That's not my fault you didn't know. That's on you, not on me. Maybe if I just found out about it, shame on me, I guess, for not knowing this sooner. Shame on me. Brother, shame on you twice as much.
Yeah.
Do we receive money from the Naples for our recyclables?
Not that I'm aware of.
It's silence.
We receive grants.
What do you mean grants? I'm talking about from the state. I'm talking about from Louis de Naples. Did we receive any money in the city from him for our recyclables?
Cash, I don't believe so, but we do receive equipment.
No. I'm not talking about cash. I'm talking about checks, whatever.
Well, and that's what I mean. We don't receive...
You don't receive money from
I don't
Louis
believe
de
we
Naples.
receive money, but we receive equipment.
You receive equipment. How often do you receive equipment?
I believe it used to be yearly, but it was changed a few years back so they could be lumped to buy
What kind of equipment?
Packmasters.
Okay. Well, can I just ask one more thing? 2 weeks ago when I was here, you mentioned about the fee for the people not getting their recyclables. You said the ceiling would be $300. Remember that, Mr. Wexler? Remember when I said, how much will it be? And you said, well, the limit will be $300.
Yep.
And it was in the ordinance that night. But in the backup of that ordinance, there wasn't one thing mentioned about a fee for not having recyclables, even though that's what the ordinance that you said you were passing that night. But there wasn't any mention at all about what is the cost if you don't do your recyclables. How could it not be in the backup if that was the ordinance you passed? I can't even comprehend. What does that mean? So is there a fee if you don't have recyclables? Because that's what you said the ordinance was
Yeah,
for.
I believe that was set up in the initial, not in that particular ordinance, that established a collection fee.
That's what it said in the ordinance that you read that night. And remember I said, how could you pass an ordinance if you don't know the fee? And you said, well, you said the limit would be $300. But you passed it that night. But there was nothing in the backup that said, if you don't have your recyclables, it's going to be such and such. Nothing. So how did you pass an ordinance that didn't discuss it in the backup? So is there a fee or isn't there?
My understanding is there's a penalty up to $300 if you don't recycle, yes.
But could you explain why it wasn't in the ordinance?
Because I think it was in the original legislation that was passed last year.
Last year.
Yep. There's a standing ordinance for the collection of the fee, and then the fee is established on an annual basis.
So there was an ordinance last year that was passed that if you didn't have your recyclables, there actually is a fee if you don't have them?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we had that whole discussion about the fees, and last year we did.
So if you don't have recyclables, there is a fee, but there's no set amount.
It was an up to,
That would be in the original ordinance from last year?
I believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Andy Sprague, fellow Scrantonians. I was a little disturbed about that little article in the paper today, how a no tax increase became a tax increase for certain people. And I find it hard to believe, with 2 real estate agents on the board here, that would go through without being brought up earlier. We all know that certain people own vast lands in the city, undeveloped land inside the city. This ordinance, or what he tried to do, well, you did pass it. So this ordinance was mainly for them, not for the general public. If you had a lot of undeveloped land inside the city, you got a tax decrease. A person with a small lot inside the city, as you know, a lot of the lots inside the city are small because of what the cost of real estate was at the time they were building. They would have got a tax increase. How could you let the business administrator do something like that without speaking up? I know you can't read all the legislation. No one can. Maybe not even the lawyers. But anyway, that should never have been. It stinks of some type of a cover-up. It really does. We haven't got over the fact that you sold a multi-million-dollar garage for $1. What does that show? It shows either the council is inept or they don't read what they're passing. Nowhere could you tell me the garage that was generating $300,000 a year wasn't worth a damn thing. What are you people doing? We're paying $5,000 a month for you people. Are we getting $5,000 worth out of you people?
Mr. Spragley, it's $13,000 a year, not $5,000 a month.
That's for all of you.
Yeah, but still.
It's 12, you get 12,500, do you not? $12,500 a year. That is $1,000 per month for each of you, which is $5,000. We're paying $5,000 plus to have you sit there and pass legislation that you don't quite comprehend. And that's not right. You should try to comprehend everything you can before you pass it. And take them emergency certificates and give them back to the mayor or whoever is giving them to you. And say, well, we will not pass anything under emergency certificate without fully understanding everything that it implies. But you don't do that. Your orders came down and you obeyed them. I don't care what. The city has been going downhill. The credibility of this administration has a low ebb. No one believes in what you say anymore. And that's bad. If you can't believe your elected officials, who can you believe? Thank you.
Good evening, Marie Schumacher. I don't know whether I stand alone on this issue, but I'm getting tired of the whoopsies. So far this year, the Sewer Authority asset sale proceeds, and now the property tax millage. And we're only halfway through the first month of 2017. On the property tax millage, something just doesn't pass the smell test. One, the ordinance emergency certificate attached, of course, did not specify the millage, which has been past practice. Anyone reviewing the agenda would have had to go back to the budget, which, incidentally, was not available and is still not available on the BA's website. It merely stated, for introduction, an ordinance amending file of council number 100, 1976, entitled, an ordinance as amended levying general and special taxes for the fiscal year 1977 by setting the millage for the year 2017, and the same shall remain in full force and effect annually thereafter. Emergency certificate attached. I mean, come on, it wasn't even in there. Other ordinances dealing with millage on that same agenda did provide the detail, so that makes it doubly strange. Also, if the single tax office informed the BA, why was this not on last week's agenda? And thanks also to the single tax office for pointing this out. It's a shame it had to be them. What is the correct service millage, debt service millage? Maybe nobody knows, okay. Moving along to, maybe in fifth order, would someone please tell us why the 2017 budget is not available, and also why the Controller's Office has not yet received a copy of the 2015 audit so that they can finish the 2015 report? Moving along to 7B. I believe this resolution should be tabled until the actual contract with Arcadis is available for review, complete with a better statement of work and specific delivery dates. The stormwater issue has been pushed to the back burner for far too long, and we need to establish a fair claim on the proceeds of the sale of the sewer authority assets. Let's review. On October 31st, 2013, the Stormwater Management System Review was released with 6 recommendations. Can any of you tell me how many of those recommendations were implemented? Was this document just put on a shelf to accumulate dust? In conjunction with one of the many revised recovery plans, on October 18, 2015, Council approved the Scranton-Abington Planning Association Plan, Comprehensive Plan, as the city's long overdue master planning document. This plan covers stormwater comprehensively. For example, Figure 2.6.5 maps the stormwater problem areas by type of problem. Was this document just put on a shelf to accumulate dust? By this time, we should have moved well beyond the preliminary stage based on work already bought and paid for. And speaking of things that did not smell too good to my nostrils, is timing. As Joan Hadanowitz and others have noted, we need to have this information well in advance of this year's general election. Did any of the other responders, I believe there were 2 others, offered to produce a result in a more timely manner? Among the issues that I have with Arcata's proposal is this sentence: "We are very sensitive of your desired outcome regarding this project." Failure to just state the desired outcome, I have observed over decades of dealing with contracts of this nature, translates into something, at least to me, such as, we have our conclusion, now we'll go out and justify that conclusion. And frankly, we deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Dave Dobson, resident, taxpayer. First of all, last week there was a discussion on arts and comments made by a commissioner, and had an interesting commentary today in the Times. And despite the fact that I have no particular affection for the person, she kind of pointed out a few disturbing things about the way the money gets spent. And furthermore, I'm all for funding libraries and so forth. It's a must as far as I'm concerned. But getting back to the arts, we missed first night this year. And that's on Scranton. We've had the parking authority sold out, garages sold. We've had the sewer plants sold. Nobody can come up with any little thing. So, you know what I did? I stayed home and watched, not The Outer Limits, the Twilight Zone all weekend. Because when I travel to another town or something, and there are police officers that I don't know or whatever, the next thing you know, I could just be sitting in a police station till 5 in the morning. I turn down parties and stuff out in the country on heavy drinking weekends. And I don't even drink, but I just don't feel like the aggravation. So please, next year, let's get it back together and have a little sense of community. I mean, it seems like everything for some people and nothing for the masses. On 5B, we're missing an opportunity here. I have an undevelopable lot. How about a flat rate someday? You know, it just keeps going up and up and up and up. If I sell it, I doubt whether I could sell it. And if I leave it go back to taxes, it's liable to be sold for a pittance, and some yaya will decide to park a diesel truck on it and idle it till who knows when or whatever. And a thought popped into my head, 7B, again. 7B and 5B. Stormwater. Now here, I have a lot, 40 by 170, adjacent to my house. I have no plans on putting any structures on it. If I sold it standalone, you could not put a structure on it. It's costing me $661 a year if I pay on time. And then on top of it, am I going to get stuck with another 60 or 100 bucks a year for stormwater on top of it? You know, it's just keeps going on and on, gets better and better. So, you know, the way things were done in the past, you guys weren't here. Okay, but let's start putting our thinking caps on. And, you know, I'd love to be able to pay $200 a year for that lot and just leave it the way it is, and it'll generate some oxygen out of the air, turn some carbon dioxide into oxygen. And tax exempts, once again, I had a newspaper, I just forgot it down there, but there's a extreme right-wing group, political group, somewhat racist possibly, getting tax exempt. And then, in 2015, I seen 3 presidential candidates up on stage at a religious freedom conference, and the minister up there was screaming in a shrill voice to outlaw gay people, round them up by the government, and execute them. Why does somebody like that need a tax exempt? I don't think they need a tax exempt on my dime. And we have 35% tax exempts. It's already to a point where we're starting to crumble under the weight on our shoulders. It's too much, and it's got to change. There should be a limit like 10%, and if the state wants to step in and replace the money, then they can have all the bigots they want. Thank you, and have a good night.
Anyone else?
Danny Pincurley,
Sir, could you state your address, please? City?
1649 Wyoming Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Thank you.
Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm not going to take up any of your time, really. Just 2 questions for you. The first is, would you say that the city's financials currently are in good order? No answer? Secondly, can you tell the taxpayers what the city's total debt is as of right now? That's including pension liabilities, OPEBs, share of county debt, share of the school debt, and interest on debt.
You're asking us for county and school, which we don't have that information.
I'm asking for total debt, what the city's total debt is. That's the number I think the taxpayers deserve to know.
I can't remember exactly what it is. I did have that figure maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, but I don't have it on me right now, so I couldn't.
You know 2 or 3 weeks ago, but you can't remember that number?
I said I had that information on me, all added up 2 or 3 weeks ago. I don't have it in front of me right now.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Fifth order, 5A, motions.
Mr. Perry?
Yeah, I have just a couple quick things this evening. I know the tax millage amendment legislation, that's going to be a hot topic, and I want to thank Mr. Balzoni for coming into caucus and giving us a good explanation of what happened, because I also had some questions with it. As you know, we passed a no property tax increase a couple weeks ago, and I wanted to make sure that we're holding to that. And I'm sure my colleagues will go into this in great detail as well. But just to sum up the caucus that we had with Mr. Balzoni and the conversation we had, Scranton is the only municipality in Lackawanna County that has 2 sets of millage, one for their land and one for their improvements. When we did a millage increase and decrease, it doesn't add up based on the land value and the improvement value. So if you owned lots of land, you are going to get a slight decrease. If you own improvement, you're going to get a slight increase in your taxes, which isn't what we passed and isn't what we wanted. So the alternative was, and is what eventually what we're going to go forward with, is a percentage increase into the millage, which is a more level approach to it, which will stop that land improvement from getting a tax break, and property, if you're property heavy, you're improvement heavy in your millage, your taxes are going to go up. So this adjustment is just to level that off to make sure that we don't have any property tax increase across the board like we said we were going to have. And there's a couple ways going forward that this can be helped. The first one is to get us out of that 2 millage system. The 2 millage system can only be, we can only get out of that is if there's a Lackawanna County assessment. With a Lackawanna County assessment, that will evenly obviously assess all the properties where we can go back to a 1 millage system, where it would make it much easier for us to anticipate and adjust as needed the millage rates for the property owners of the city. And again, I'm sure my colleagues are going to go into that in great detail, but that was my take from the caucus. Secondly, and this issue we touched on, that 36-inch drainage pipe that we've been working on for a while, that I have taken the lead on the last 2 weeks for the Kaiser Valley residents. We are going to have a meeting this week. We are going to have plenty of officials. We're going to have American Water Company, DPW, city engineer. Myself will be there. Councilman Gahan has said he'll be here, and I know there'll be lots of other, I don't know if Mr. Rogan, Wexler, or Evans will be able to break away from work, but I know it's very much in the forefront of us to get this situation fixed. There was a second safety issue that was brought to our attention last week on Dorothy Street in West Side by the park. DPW did a temporary fix on that, on the hole by a storm drain, and they're going to be revisiting that later this week, early into next week, to get a more permanent fix to that problem. Also, 5I deals with this situation we talked about last week, which is a turn signal on Jackson Street, so we're going to get the ball moving on that and try to get that situation fixed. And finally, it's with a very heavy heart. I give my deepest condolences to the Kalpin family of Scranton. They lost a proud member of their family this week, Thomas Kalpin, and I'm sure he'll be missed greatly. And I wish nothing but the best for their family, and hopefully the love of their friends, family, and their faith in God can hold them together in this awful time. That's all I have today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Mr. Rogan?
Yes, 2 brief items, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the tax legislation as well. First, I'd like to thank the DPW for helping out with a number of citizens' complaints in the McNichols Plaza area of South Scranton. They were very quick to reply, and the residents were very happy to have those taken care of. Recycling was brought up tonight, and I did want to announce, and I want to try to make a habit of it more often regarding recycling. Recycling bins are available at the Scranton DPW. I did check with a DPW employee earlier in the week. We do have both the red and the blue bins in. So somebody who's out there, if you do need recycling bins, you could pick them up at 101 West Poplar Ave, which is the DPW headquarters. Or if you can't get down there, if you want to get in touch with me, I'll make arrangements so you could obtain both a red and a blue recycling bin. I know we've spoke at length about it, but every pound or ton of garbage that is recycled saves us money at the dump, it saves the environment, and it does come back to us in state grants. So it is very important that everyone in the city does recycle. Moving on to the taxing legislation, which seems to be the hot issue for the night. I'd also like to thank Mr. Bolzoni for coming in and explaining how this error was made. And despite some of the comments that were made by speakers, I do want to note the first item that's mentioned in the memorandum from Mr. Bolzoni is that the budget states right in the highlights that the intent of the budget was to maintain total millage at 2016 levels. Everyone on city council, the mayor and the administration, that was always the intent. And as I explained, you'll see why it is a little more confusing than just simply setting a percentage. As Mr. Perry mentioned, the city of Scranton assesses two separate millage rates, one on the land and one on the improvements on the land. Moving even deeper into that, within those two, there are two additional parts that are broken out in previous budgets. There's millage that was used for debt service and millage used for general operating. So in reality, you actually have four separate tax millages the way it was broken out in previous budgets. And just to give an example of how precise these numbers can be, and this is coming right out of the legislation, this will set the real estate millage, and I'll read it off, it's 0.232521 on land and 0.050564 mils on buildings. So you could see how far the decimal point goes down in these type of scenarios and how an even 1/1000% will affect tax bills. I know it was certainly the intent of everyone to have your tax bill for the city look exactly the same as it did the year previous. And the first question I asked Mr. Bolzoni in the caucus, and I know this is what everyone watching cares about the most, is when they get their tax bill, how will it look? By passing this corrective legislation tonight, your city tax bill will look exactly the same as it looked last year, which was always the intent of myself and all of this council, to have it mirrored identical. Because of the way it's structured with the really four different, even though you only receive one tax bill, in the city's budget, it is four different items. And that's why there was a little bit of confusion, when you're dealing with decimal points so far down the line, it could get much more confusing. One other point I do want to mention that was in Mr. Bolzoni's memo, and this was the conclusion. He said, to conclude, the city of Scranton will likely not need to undertake this exercise if assessed values were reasonably current. Current values would enable an evaluation to collapse the two millage concept into a single millage component used by most municipalities in Pennsylvania. Changing the present taxing method without a reassessment in property values is a virtual impossibility. And this is something that I have been talking about for a very long time. And I know Councilman Evans is going to speak about this a little bit more, is the need for a reassessment. There are many reasons why a reassessment is needed in Lackawanna County. The first being tax fairness, that there are people with smaller houses paying more taxes than people who live in bigger houses. And that's not fair. It's also not fair that the current system of appeals benefits those who can afford an attorney or who know the ins and the outs of the system. Meanwhile, while the average working person or senior citizen just pays the bill that they receive because they can't afford to hire an attorney to challenge their tax appeal, their tax assessment. Finally, the one other item that Mr. Bolzoni talked about at length in the caucus was that because of the tax appeal process and the lack of new building growth in the city, the total assessment in the city of Scranton actually goes down every year. As I mentioned, those who can afford to appeal are appealing, and they're getting their taxes reduced. So you wind up with a situation where the average person is paying more, and those who are connected and could afford attorneys are paying less, and that's simply not right. This legislation tonight, in the short term, will correct the error that was made, and your tax bill will remain the same from 2016 into 2017. And the good news of a no tax increase from Lackawanna County as well as the Scranton School District, your overall bill will remain exactly the same. And finally, I would be remiss if I didn't thank our tax office and our tax collector, Bill Fox, for noticing this error. It's certainly much easier to correct this now than it would be after tax bills were sent out. And many people would be very upset to see that it wasn't exactly what we said. And I'm sure those whose taxes were a little bit less wouldn't be the ones calling us. But again, this will correct that millage error, which again really comes down to a millionth of a percent within these decimal points. But it has to be exactly right because of how complex our tax system is. But this will get it squared away. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogan. Mr. Evans?
Thank you. Brief comments on the sewer sale. At this point in time, I think we have three primary goals. Number one is to get the answers as for the reasons for the $12 million gap in cash anticipated in the sale, as well as other questions identified by City Council in the last week's letter to the SSA and the consultants. Number two, we need to determine the most effective and cost-effective use of all of the proceeds for the city and all of its taxpayers. And number three, to make sure stormwater management is done in an efficient and cost-effective manner pending the study's completion. With that said, I'd like to thank Councilman Gahn for his in-depth report last week on the stormwater study. It brings us to where we are and where our future focus should be. Stormwater management is not only an obligation for the city of Scranton and many other municipalities, but I think it's an opportunity as well. On the millage rate change, I'm going to have to reject the latest conspiracy theory. It certainly isn't even close to being accurate. The good news is we caught this before the tax bills went out. Clearly, this points out to the difficulty and the inherent unfairness of the two-tiered taxing strategy currently employed by the city, which, because of the addition of the debt service, actually turns into a four-tiered millage system. So the only true way to get a much fairer system, a one-tier taxing strategy, is through a reassessment. While some people talk about tax fairness, a county-wide reassessment is the only true way to get there. A little history on the two-tier strategy that we use in Scranton. Of course, there's a separate millage rate for land and a separate millage rate for improvements, which is the building on the land. The millage rate on the land is higher. This is a decision made decades ago in a failed attempt to increase development on empty lots. So what we have is a determination of land value from the 1970s, where the last reassessment determined that a 40 by 150 lot should be assessed more on East Mountain or Green Ridge or the Upper Hill or West Mountain or Green Ridge than in other areas of the city. If the intent was to value a property more because of market value, it should have been done through the improvement side of the assessment, not the land side. Because the last time I looked, as I mentioned in caucus, dirt is still dirt all over the city. So there are so many inconsistencies in assessed value in the city that it borders on insanity. I'm calling on the county commissioners again for the umpteenth time to finally commit to a county-wide reassessment. This latest issue is another unintended consequence of their failure to act. Also, a brief comment. Ms. Schumacher mentioned SAPA, so I did talk to Don King today on an unrelated matter, and we talked about SAPA a little bit because I haven't heard much about it recently, and it appears that they're having some trouble getting some state grants, and that's a shame. So I'm going to see if we can further that conversation and find out if there's anything we can do as a body to help move that along. But when we were talking, another idea came to me too, is that we're always trying to formulate some ideas and what to do with the proceeds of the sewer money, and I'd like to plug in another idea as far as an economic driver is concerned, and that would be a study and creation of a new zoning ordinance. The current ordinance was drafted and passed in 1993. It's so old that one of the original authors of the document is yours truly, as a member of the City Planning Commission at that time.
That is old.
That is old. That's a long time ago. I think I had black hair at the time and a black mustache. But an updated ordinance will clarify to many of these the issues the city faces were not even on the radar in 1993. An updated ordinance would also prove beneficial for new development, as well as a current view of what is necessary today to protect our neighborhoods. A progressive city does not have a 24-year-old zoning code. Most estimates put the cost of the study and creation of a new ordinance of somewhere between $25,000 to $50,000. I think that's something that we can do, and it's something that we should try to shepherd in 2017. So that's all I have for now, and I'll talk a little bit more on some of the agenda items.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. And you're not old, you're just experienced.
That's right. Thank you.
Mr. Guyan?
Yes, thank you. Just a few items. First, if we could send correspondence to the administration and ask them to put the budget on the website. I'm not sure why it's not on yet, but it is unacceptable that it's not on the website for the public to see. So if we could please send something to the IT department. I was at a very interesting meeting today, as I announced last week, with a representative from Smart City Media and the business administrator. And As I mentioned last week, I think this is going to be an unbelievable opportunity for the city of Scranton on a number of different fronts. Smart city media is growing all over the country, and basically, in a nutshell, it is connecting government with its citizens in a very creative and technological way. Recently, Kansas City was involved in a major project using this type of technology. Other cities, Washington, D.C., New York City, and some other similarly sized cities to Scranton are now getting involved. And what it would be kiosks located in the downtown and around the city in strategic locations so that people can discover events, programs, emergency alerts, so there's a public safety aspect. And one of the things that I liked as we were discussing these things in the meeting was it could be a significant revenue generator for the city. We were looking at a 5-year total of near $1 million revenue coming into the city from this program. So from a public safety standpoint, economic development, small business, I think this is something that is going to be very helpful for the city. So I look forward to continuing these conversations with the administration. We have not received any answers, to my knowledge, to the questions that we had posed related to the sale of the Scranton Sewer Authority last week. We did ask for the answers to be provided by January 18th. So I'm not sure what the holdup is, but you know, as I go around the city, people are very curious about what went on in this deal. So I do think that if we don't get these answers by next week, we should seriously consider using our subpoena powers if necessary, because these are serious questions and we need answers to them. And I hope that the mayor and the Scranton Sewer Authority does not think that this issue is just going to go away and we're going to forget about it, because we are not. On that issue, numerous residents had contacted me that they have seen Scranton Sewer Authority trucks around the city doing work, sometimes with Pennsylvania American Water. So I'd like to know who is insuring these trucks, and if it is Pennsylvania American Water, why is the Scranton Sewer Authority logo still on the trucks? So wondering if this is a potential liability issue. Also, we received an email from our business administrator about some downtown business recycling initiatives. So I was very glad to see that. We have historically had a problem with downtown businesses recycling. So there are a number of different items here that they're going to move on in the next few months. So glad to see that. Just a couple citizens' requests. We did ask that the police department enforce parking in the area of Price Street and Van Buren Avenue. Cars are parking too close to the intersection, and it's creating visibility issues. So they were dispatched out there. I did attend a Weston Field neighborhood meeting this week. A couple items that we are going to send to the appropriate departments. Graffiti that's on the Weston Field house that needs to be taken care of. There are numerous lights out on the DPW building, and 1300 block of Short Avenue residents are reporting abandoned cars. Mrs. Franis brought up a good point tonight, and a question that I was preparing to ask is why aren't we putting the revenue that we receive from the garbage fee into an interest-bearing account? And are we planning on doing that? She was correct when she said that the ordinance does call for that. Article 2, Section C. All fees shall be deposited in a special city interest-bearing account to be established by the business administrator. This account will be used to reimburse the general city operating fund for costs incurred directly for the disposal of refuse. So if my colleagues agree, I would like to send correspondence to our business administrator and the administration asking why this isn't being done and if we are planning on doing that. And that is all I have this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guine. In regards to the questions concerning the sewer authority, our caucus ran a little over this evening, so I did not get to share this information with my colleagues. We have been in contact with Attorney Conboy, who is working on the answers of the questions that we submitted last week. Since he does represent the Scranton Sewer Authority Board, he does have to meet with the board first to get finalization on some of the questions that were asked. So I believe, as we heard tonight, the meeting is Friday, so we're hoping to hear from Mr. Conboy next week after the Sewer Authority meeting. In regards to the correction for our property taxes, the strange thing is, and the saying goes, no good deed goes unpunished. Our goal was to not have a tax increase this year. And I think in prior years, the tax increases that came may have had the same situation in it, but nobody really paid attention to it because your tax bill went up every year for the past couple years. In my business, I'm in manufacturing, so we constantly review what we do and how we do it. We review our performance, we review how we got to certain locations. I look at this as something that was reviewed by another outside group. The tax collector's office worked these numbers, and they contacted the business administration, who contacted the mayor and myself immediately. I believe I found out about this last Wednesday, I believe. And we began the idea of how we were going to adjust this. Unfortunately, Wednesday, it was too late for any of this information to come to our agenda. Plus, as Councilman Rogan went over, the review of these numbers to get it to a point where there was no tax increase was a monumental effort to get it to balance out. To me, the bottom line is there was a problem. It was corrected. To me, that's all you can ask for in terms of being responsible for something. The bottom line is our tax bills will be the same. And as the years goes on and we are looking at our tax increases either being flat or minimal, this is something that we're going to have to do every year to make sure that the increases or decreases are fair to everyone, and that the taxing bills remain where we would like them to be. So, like I said, fortunately, this is something that we were able to correct before the tax bills went out, and in the long run, it'll be the way that we intended it to be. Just some information about that was provided to us by Solicitor Durkin from the Uniform Pension Board. So far, in terms of the double pension, there's no ruling yet. The best estimate would be that it should come within the next couple of weeks. Currently, it's in the hands of 2 hearing officers. There were 22 cases covering 2 different years, 2 years of testimony, and 6 attorneys were present at these hearings, which is causing, in terms of the delay. So we are still waiting to hear about the double pension reviews. Today, if you came to City Hall today, every meeting room was full with people. Mr. Gahan was at a meeting. I also attended a meeting today of something, as Mr. Evans talked about, how our zoning ordinance is going to have to be updated. Myself and Jessica Boyles attended a meeting today with people who are bidding on the chance to have a medical marijuana dispensary in the city. The state has established a few of these potential licenses, and I believe that Scranton being, we want the progressive city that we want it to be, we do want to make sure that Scranton is on the cutting edge of this new technology. Unfortunately, the facilities for the growing and the production of which would be topical lotions, we don't have an opportunity to do that within the city. I think the closest one right now is it's going to be in Covington Township. But we do want to have the city participate in this, but right now, as Mr. Evans cited, our zoning law is silent in terms of these type of places. So there is some progress being made in the city on different opportunities. Unfortunately, I will not be able to attend the meeting on Amirfield Avenue on Tuesday. My work schedule will prohibit me from attending, but I know that the council will be well represented there, And as Mr. Gahan stated, we did have success in the past at these type of meetings, so hopefully we'll be able to come to some final resolution to get this problem corrected. I also attended the Bull's Head meeting on Tuesday night, and as always, the residents down there are constantly concerned about the state of the flood project in their area. They continue to have problems with quads that are riding on the levee and taking the top layer of dirt off the levee. The quads represent a serious problem to the city in terms of destruction, and really the police are discouraged from chasing them just so there's no safety issue there. But anything that can be done to control the quads on the levee projects would be greatly appreciated. We had a couple of different situations with utility pave cut problems in the city. One was up on Winter Mantle Avenue, and that was, the problem with that was it wasn't completed yet. They were back up there today digging again, so that will have to be looked at. I did speak to the pave cut inspector down on Birch Street. There's a serious problem with a hole that opened up, and on my way home today from work today, I found the one on Stafford Avenue. So there's another, these are pave cuts, utility cuts that have not been properly repaired, and we will follow up with those again tomorrow. I have all these little papers here. I think that's it.
5B, for introduction, an ordinance amending file of the Council Number 6, 1976, entitled, an ordinance as amended imposing a tax for general revenue purposes on the transfer of real property situate within the city of Scranton, prescribing and regulating the method of evidencing the payment of such tax, conferring powers and imposing duties upon certain persons, and providing penalties by imposing the rate of the realty transfer tax at 2 4/10% for calendar year 2017, and the same shall remain in full force and effect annually thereafter.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, Attorney Minor, before you vote, if you can, is there any reason whatsoever to believe that there would be a conflict of interest for anyone in City Council relative to this legislation?
No. The conflict of interest has to have a direct impact or direct profit to an individual voting. This would go to the buyer and seller of real estate and has no direct impact even on a realtor, let alone an individual realtor.
Okay, well, thank you. I just want to get that out of the way. While I'm disappointed that we have to bring this back, mostly to satisfy state statutes, I guess it's been so long that a tax actually has been reduced that it caught everybody a little off guard. But on a positive note, I'm happy to be able to vote 3 more times for this type of legislation, so that's a good thing.
Yes, on the question, once again, this is some housekeeping that has to be done. The goal was to get this tax lowered, get the news out there, and bring some encouragement to sellers and buyers within the city. So you will go through the exercise of doing this as required by state law, but the goal was to get this tax lowered.
Just to add off what Councilman Evans said, I certainly agree. I wish we were voting on tax decreases every day, but this is hopefully the first of many tax decreases to come. I firmly believe that the wage tax and the real estate tax can be looked at for very minimal decreases in future years, but decreases nonetheless.
All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so moved.
5C for introduction, an ordinance amending file of the Council Number 78, 2017, an ordinance amending file of the Council Number 100, 1976, entitled, an ordinance as amended levying general and special taxes for the fiscal year 1977 by setting the millage for the year 2017, and the same shall remain in full force and effect annually thereafter, by amending Section 1, reverting back to the millage rates from 2016, which are .232521 mils levy on land and .050564 mils levy on all buildings, and by eliminating the dedicated millage for debt service contained in Section 2 and replacing the dedicated millage for debt service with a dedicated debt percentage of 32% of real estate tax revenues collected on a current year basis, emergency certificate attached.
At this time, we'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so moved.
5D for introduction, an ordinance amending file of the Council Number 65, 2016, an ordinance entitled General City Operating Budget 2017 by reverting back to the real estate tax millage from 2016 of .232521 mils levy on land and .050564 mils levy on all buildings, and by eliminating the dedicated millage for debt service and replacing the dedicated millage for debt service with a dedicated debt service percentage of 32% of real estate tax revenue collected on a current year basis, and by increasing the projected earned income tax revenue from $25,898,760.41 to $26,614,677.49, and by amending any and all sections of the 2017 budget to reflect the aforementioned changes, emergency certificate attached.
At this time, we'll entertain a motion that item 5D be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so moved.
5E for introduction, a resolution accepting the recommendation of the Historical Architecture Review Board and approving the certificate of appropriateness for Daniel Kozlowski, 526 South Irving Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, for installation of gold-colored vinyl stickers that read "Candy, Lunch, Coffee, Snacks, and Abby's to Go" in the style of existing lettering on the building and surrounding buildings at 150 Adams Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania.
At this time, we'll entertain a motion that item 5E be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so moved.
5F for introduction, a resolution accepting the recommendation of the Historical Architecture Review Board and approving the certificate of appropriateness for Thomas Jaworski, 913 South Main Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, for installation of gold-colored vinyl stickers that read Wright, Reiner, Mulcahy, Grolmeski, and Tunis in the style of existing lettering on the building and surrounding buildings at 148 Adams Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania.
At this time, we'll entertain a motion item 5F be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so moved.
5G for introduction, a resolution accepting the recommendation of the Historical Architecture Review Board and approving the certificate of appropriateness for Widmer Sign Company Incorporated, 2209 Amelia Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, for installation of a 6 feet wide by 4 feet high awning constructed of matte black aluminum, which will be lit with soft LED lighting with a 24-inch projection with lower section of awning to have polycarbonate panels to illuminate graphics logos, with additional approval to not have to go before HARB to replace signage panel that will display the name of the tenant's business. Application must be resubmitted only if LED lighting and/or changes to awning are made at 406 Spruce Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania.
At this time, we'll entertain a motion that item 5G be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so moved.
5H for introduction, a resolution, reappointment of Joseph A. Ricardo Jr., 944 Monroe Avenue, apartment number 1, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18509, as a member of the Shade Tree Commission effective December 7, 2016. Mr. Ricardo is being reappointed to a 2-year term, which will expire on December 7, 2018.
At this time, we'll entertain a motion that item 5H be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
Yes, just like to mention, I know Mr. Ricardo pretty well, and I know he does a great job and is very active in a number of boards and a number of civic organizations within the city, so I'd just like to wish him the best.
I will agree. Joe is a very good man.
All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so moved.
5I for introduction, a resolution authorizing the Director of the Department of Public Works of the City of Scranton to sign and submit the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation application for traffic signal approval for traffic signal permit number as noted for the modification of the existing traffic signal at North-South Main Avenue and Jackson Street.
At this time, we'll entertain a motion that item 5I be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so moved.
I make a motion to suspend the rules to move items 5C and 5D to 6th and 7th orders to be considered for final passage based on the attached emergency certificates.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, so moved.
Sixth order, 6A, reading by title, file of the Council Number 81, 2017, an ordinance approving the transfer of a restaurant liquor license currently owned by Another Time Restaurant LLC, trading as AV Restaurant, Music-Borough, license number is noted, to Another Time Restaurant LLC, trading as AV Restaurant, for use at 320 Penn Avenue, Scranton, Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania, as required by the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board.
You've heard reading by title of item 6A. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6A pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, so moved.
6B, formerly 5C, reading by title, file of the Council Number 83, 2017, an ordinance amending file of the Council Number 78, 2017, an ordinance amending file of the Council Number 100, 1976, entitled, an ordinance as amended levying general and special taxes for the fiscal year 1977 by setting the millage for the year 2017, and the same shall remain in full force and effect annually thereafter by amending Section 1, reverting back to the millage rates from 2016, which are .232521 mils levy on land and 0.050564 mils levy on all buildings, and by eliminating the dedicated millage for debt service contained in Section 2 and replacing the dedicated millage for debt service with a dedicated debt percentage of 32% of real estate tax revenues collected on a current year basis. Emergency certificate attached.
You've heard reading by title of item 6B. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6B pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so moved.
6C, formerly 5D, reading by title, file of the Council Number 84, 2017, an ordinance amending file of the Council Number 65, 2016, an ordinance entitled General City Operating Budget 2017 by reverting back to the real estate tax millage from 2016 of .232521 mils levy on land and .050564 mils levy on all buildings, and by eliminating the dedicated millage for debt service and replacing the dedicated millage for debt service with a dedicated debt service percentage of 32% of real estate tax revenue collected on a current year basis, and by increasing the projected earned income tax revenue from $25,898,760.41 to $26,614,677.49, and by amending any and all sections of the 2017 budget to reflect the aforementioned changes. Emergency certificate attached.
You've heard reading by title of item 6C. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6C pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so moved. If anyone would like to address council on this emergency legislation, you may do so at this time.
Seventh order, 7A, for consideration by the Committee on Finance for Adoption, file of the Council Number 80, 2017, amending file of the Council Number 126, 2015, an ordinance entitled General City Operating Budget 2016 by transferring $21,000 from account number as noted, Department of Business Administration, Bureau of Administration, Professional Services, to account number as noted, Office of the City Clerk, City Council, Professional Services, to provide sufficient funding for the professional services account through the 2016 budget period.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson for the Committee on Finance, I recommend final passage of item 7A.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
7B for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 100, 2017, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a contract with Arcadis U.S. Incorporated to perform City of Scranton preliminary stormwater analysis.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7B legally and lawfully adopted.
7C for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 101, 2017, reappointment of Kevin Whelan, 1111 Delaware Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18509, as a member of the Board of the Scranton Sewer Authority for an additional 5-year term effective January 4, 2017. Mr. Whelan's prior term expired on December 31, 2016, and his new term will expire on January 4, 2022.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7C.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7C legally and lawfully adopted.
7D for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 102, 2017, reappointment of Patrick J. Hughes, 15 Fawnwood Drive, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18504, as a member of the Board of the Scranton Sewer Authority for an additional 5-year term, effective January 4, 2017. Mr. Hughes' prior term expired December 31, 2016, and his new term will expire on January 4, 2022.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7D.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7D legally and lawfully adopted.
7E, formerly 6B, for consideration by the Committee on Finance for Adoption, file of the Council Number 83, 2017, an ordinance amending file of the Council Number 78, 2017, an ordinance amending file of the Council Number 100, 1976, entitled, an ordinance as amended levying general and special taxes for the fiscal year 1977 by setting the millage for the year 2017, and the same shall remain in full force and effect annually thereafter, by amending Section 1, reverting back to the millage rates from 2016, which are .232521 mils levy on land and .050564 mils levy on all buildings, and by eliminating the dedicated millage for debt service contained in Section 2 and replacing the dedicated millage for debt service with a dedicated debt percentage of 32% of real estate tax revenues collected on a current year basis. Emergency certificate attached.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson for the Committee on Finance, I recommend final passage of item 7E.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7E legally and lawfully adopted.
7F, formerly 6C, for consideration by the Committee on Finance for Adoption, file of the Council Number 84, 2017, an ordinance amending file of the Council Number 65, 2016, an ordinance entitled General City Operating Budget 2017, by reverting back to the real estate tax millage from 2016 of .232521 mils levy on land and .050564 mils levy on all buildings, and by eliminating the dedicated millage for debt service and replacing the dedicated millage for debt service with a dedicated debt service percentage of 32% of real estate tax revenue collected on a current year basis, and by increasing the projected earned income tax revenue from $25,898,760.41 to $26,614,677.49, and by amending any and all sections of the 2017 budget to reflect the aforementioned changes. Emergency certificate attached.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson for the Committee on Finance, I recommend final passage of item 7F.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Rogan?
Yes.
Mr. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Gahn?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7F legally and lawfully adopted.
Prior to adjournment, there was one item I forgot to mention under motions. We did send a letter to the Scranton School Board President requesting that the former Lincoln Jackson Elementary property is put back out to bid. This was, the Scranton Times wrote a good article about this and took the neighborhood perspective. So we did send a formal letter requesting that it is put back out to bid, and I did talk to the solicitor at the school board as well as one of the developers that was interested, and it does look as if that this property will go back out to bid and hopefully will be back on the tax rolls.
If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting's adjourned.